What if episode 8 of The Testaments just quietly set up Daisy's most dangerous decision yet? Because after finally learning the horrifying truth about what Dr. Grove allegedly did to Agnes, Daisy may be heading toward a confrontation that could completely destroy her cover in Gilead. And honestly, the scariest part is that Daisy does not fully understand the system she is about to fight. By the end of the episode, she is angry, emotional, and desperate for justice. But in a world like Gilead, justice rarely comes without consequences. So is Daisy really about to expose Dr. Grove? Or is the show secretly setting her up for a devastating mistake? Before we get into the theory, let's quickly recap what episode 8 actually gave us, because several storylines quietly collided in a way that feels much bigger than it first appears. At the start of the episode, Daisy experiences something that completely changes her reality inside Gilead. She gets her period. Under normal circumstances, this would simply be a part of growing up. But in Gilead, menstruation is not treated like a personal milestone. It is basically an announcement that a girl is now eligible for marriage, which means her future suddenly becomes controlled by everyone except herself. And unlike the Plums, who celebrated becoming women, Daisy immediately understands why this is terrible news. This is actually one of the smartest character moments the show has given Daisy so far, because it reminds us that she still thinks differently from the girls raised in Gilead. While many of the Plums have been conditioned to view marriage as success, Daisy sees the danger immediately. She knows that once the aunts find out, her freedom disappears. School becomes less important. Access to powerful commanders vanishes. Her ability to move quietly through the system becomes limited. Worst of all, she risks losing the independence she has worked so hard to maintain. So naturally, Daisy does what Daisy does best. She adapts. Instead of accepting what Gilead expects from her, she tries to hide the truth. But of course, secrets in Gilead never stay hidden for long. Shunammite quickly discovers Daisy's situation, and for a moment it genuinely feels like disaster is coming. The show almost tricks us into expecting betrayal. After all, this is Gilead, a place where girls are constantly pressured to police one another, and loyalty rarely exists without conditions. But surprisingly, episode 8 takes their relationship in a much more interesting direction. Instead of exposing Daisy, Shunammite opens up emotionally in a way we have not really seen before. Underneath her confident personality is someone deeply insecure and afraid. She reveals that while everyone else around her has become a green, nothing has happened for her yet. And in Gilead, that kind of delay comes with shame. Suddenly, we understand something important about Shunammite. She is scared. Scared that she may never become the kind of woman Gilead expects. Scared that she may be viewed as defective. Scared that she might even be barren. And honestly, this moment matters far more than some viewers might realize, because it exposes how cruel Gilead really is. Even privileged girls suffer under impossible expectations. Their value is tied to fertility, marriage, and obedience. If something goes wrong, they're treated like failures. What makes this scene even stronger is Daisy's response. Instead of using Shunammite's insecurity against her, Daisy shows compassion. She reassures her, listens to her, and unexpectedly builds trust. That friendship may seem small right now, but I actually think the show is doing something important here. Daisy is beginning to gather allies, whether she realizes it or not. And in Gilead, trust can become rebellion very quickly. But if Daisy's storyline was only about hiding her secret, this episode would not feel nearly as explosive as it actually does, because the emotional center of episode 8 belongs to Agnes. After secretly helping Daisy with sanitary napkins, Agnes and Daisy finally share one of the most important conversations in the entire season. At first, Daisy assumes Agnes has been distant because of Becca's engagement or complicated feelings surrounding Garth. But the truth turns out to be much darker. Agnes finally reveals why she cannot stand being around Becca's father. She tells Daisy about the abuse she suffered at the hands of Dr. Grove. And honestly, this may be one of the most heartbreaking moments the show has delivered so far, not just because of what Agnes reveals, but because of who she chooses to trust with that truth. Think about it. Agnes could have kept this bottled up. She could have stayed silent. She could have continued pretending nothing happened. Instead, she confides in Daisy. That choice feels incredibly important because Daisy still has something most people in Gilead have lost, an outsider's moral compass. She hasn't been completely shaped by the system. She still reacts to injustice like someone from the real world. And that becomes painfully obvious when Daisy learns something even more disturbing. Aunt Lydia already knows. Now, this is where things become complicated, because from Daisy's perspective, this revelation feels unforgivable. Imagine hearing your friend confess abuse, only to find out someone powerful already knew and apparently did nothing to stop it. Of course Daisy feels betrayed. Of course she is furious. And honestly, viewers are probably feeling that anger too. But here's where the show becomes more layered. As viewers, we know the situation with Aunt Lydia may not be as simple as Daisy thinks. Lydia clearly operates inside a system where power protects powerful men. And while that doesn't excuse silence, it complicates the situation. Daisy sees failure. The audience sees someone possibly trying to protect girls within a system stacked against her. That difference matters, because Daisy may now be preparing to act based on incomplete information. And if there's one thing Gilead punishes brutally, it's emotional decisions. Still, by the end of episode 8, something has clearly shifted inside Daisy. The final scene between her and Agnes feels warm on the surface, but emotionally, it feels like the beginning of something dangerous. Daisy comforts Agnes and reassures her that she is glad she opened up. But beneath that kindness, you can almost feel Daisy's anger building. And this is exactly why I think episode 9 could be setting up Daisy's biggest risk yet. I do think Daisy may try to expose Dr. Grove, but probably not in the way people expect. A lot of fans immediately jump to violence. After everything Agnes revealed, it would make sense emotionally for Daisy to snap. She is impulsive, protective, and deeply emotional when someone she cares about gets hurt. But if we think strategically, violence would be a disaster. This is Gilead. Dr. Grove is respected, protected, connected. If Daisy physically attacks him without evidence, she likely destroys herself before helping anyone. She risks losing her freedom, exposing her identity, and potentially endangering Agnes in the process. That is why I think the smarter possibility is far more interesting. What if Daisy uses the system against him? And strangely enough, her menstruation storyline may become the key. Right now, Daisy desperately wants to hide the fact that she has gotten her period because it threatens her independence. But what if exposing Dr. Grove becomes more important than protecting herself? What if she willingly tells the aunts? Not because she suddenly wants marriage, but because becoming eligible for marriage might give her access to Dr. Grove. The episode already reminds us that girls often interact with him during dental visits and beautification procedures tied to preparing for adulthood and marriage. Suddenly, Daisy has an opening, an opportunity, a reason to get close, not as a victim, but as someone looking for answers. And honestly, this feels exactly like the kind of risky decision Daisy would make. She is clever, resourceful, and stubborn enough to believe she can outsmart dangerous people. The real question is whether she tries to do this alone, because Garth may become incredibly important here. Daisy already trusts him enough to ask for help with something deeply personal. More importantly, there are hints that Garth may have deeper connections to resistance efforts happening beneath the surface. If Daisy decides to tell him what Agnes revealed, suddenly this becomes much bigger than personal revenge. This becomes strategy. Maybe Daisy gathers proof. Maybe someone connected to resistance networks helps expose Dr. Grove quietly. Or maybe powerful men in Gilead are forced to confront something ugly hiding inside their own system. Or maybe the show goes in an even darker direction, because we also need to consider a painful possibility. What if Daisy fails? Gilead survives because predators are protected. People with status rarely fall easily. Dr. Grove is dangerous not only because of what he allegedly did, but because he understands exactly how power works. Men like him survive because systems protect them, and Daisy still does not fully understand how ruthless Gilead truly is. That is what makes the storyline so compelling. For the first time, Daisy is no longer just surviving Gilead or observing its cruelty from a distance. Now she has skin in the game. Someone she cares about has been hurt. Someone trusted her with something devastating. And now Daisy has to decide whether justice is worth the risk. Because if episode 8 really is setting up Daisy versus Dr. Grove, then episode 9 could completely change everything. The biggest question is not whether Daisy wants revenge. The real question is this: will Daisy be smart enough to expose Dr. Grove without becoming the next person destroyed by the very system she is trying to fight?